Well, we knew to expect hijinks, stupidity, and plenty of drama as the Chicago Bears and Minnesota Vikings wrapped up week one at Soldier Field. But Derrik Klassen, I don't think any amount of jokes about this game could have prepared me for how it actually played out. The Minnesota Vikings, in J.J. McCarthy's NFL debut, roar back in the second half. They down the Bears 27-24 after a nightmare start. And I don't even know where we need to begin this. So I'm just gonna toss it for you. What is the gut reaction after a marathon like that?
If we're gonna skip making fun of the Bears immediately, which I don't think we have to do, because we'll probably do enough of this year. For me, it was the thing that we said about the Vikings this year was, can JJ McCarthy make like 4 plays? And for 2.5 quarters, it seemed like the answer was definitively no. He was like it. What's funny is it feels like a lifetime ago that he played like how poorly he did in that first half, because the second half obviously felt so different. But he looked completely discombobulated. Like he, on his first snap, almost did not get the ball off because it seemed like they were a little bit slow in their operation. For a lot of the rest of the first half, they were slow in their operation. I don't know if they were late getting the play in. Even Aikman was kind of like talking about why are things so slow for them. And then even trigger wise, like McCarthy, it just looked like he was slow to trigger on stuff, didn't look comfortable, all this stuff. And then you get to the second half and he hits one go ball to the running back down the right sideline for a touchdown. He almost hit, like he kind of hits Justin Jefferson in the hands on an over route that he can't quite bring in. And then they have that zone read play where it was fantastic call, by the way, by Kevin O'Connell to give JJ like the free run to the right side. And it's like, it turns out the answer is like, yeah, if JJ can make 3 plays, then this Vikings team is good enough.
So full disclosure, just in case you're tuning in and you're not aware, Robert went to this game. He was at
he's not just
Soldier
hiding.
Field. He's not, well, he might be in hiding, but he's on his way home from this game. Presumably he and his wife went to take it in. I got to admit, I feel for the guy. Our listeners in the Discord were begging me throughout the game to check in on him. And I was like, absolutely not. In a situation like this, I'm not going to do it. I'm sure Robert will have takes from what I have to assume was his nightmare scenario for how this Monday night might go down, but we'll worry about that later. I love how you started this off though, Derrik, because this is an NFL show. Obviously, I don't know if you're listening, how much college football you watch, but fittingly, because of his college career and how little the Michigan Wolverines asked JJ McCarthy to do, all I could think about in the first half was, I feel like I'm watching college football. Like, this is what a true freshman looks like when he goes on the road in conference, and he's not ready for the complexity of the defense. He's not ready for the crowd noise. He's not ready for the fact that the play clock starts again, no matter what happened on the play before. And right about halftime, I was like, what did we expect? Like, what did you think when a guy who had no rookie season goes on the road and against Dennis Allen, by the way? And I was all ready to pat us on the back for our prognostications about what Dennis Allen might do for the Bears defense. They looked like they had JJ McCarthy in hell for what? 38 minutes of this game, because even the pick 6 came on the first possession of the third quarter too. Like, blitzed at just the right time, baited him into a quick bad throw, and it's 17-6, and it just looks like Minnesota's going to have no hope in this game. And the quickness with which JJ McCarthy became a competent NFL quarterback was incredible. And man, I thought about you the entire time, because I think it really centered around getting Jordan Mason and this run game going. Like, it was so fun to watch.
Dude, it really did. Like, that was part of the other struggles in the first half, right? Like, JJ McCarthy was not playing well, but they also weren't running the ball very well in the first half. Like, they were a little bit struggling to find what they wanted. They were using a little bit more Aaron Jones in the run game. And then, like you said, as the game went on, they realized, if we just call some off tackle stuff for Jordan Mason, he's going to get north and south, and they're going to be able to hit it. And obviously, when you have a backup linebacker in the game for the Bears, TJ Edwards was not playing. They had Noah Sewell in there. And Sewell is like, the thing that he can do okay is play between the tackles, but he's still your backup linebacker, and he's not TJ Edwards, who's a very good player. And so them attacking the Bears front that way, I thought was really good. And then once Mason started to get going, I feel like you could see JJ McCarthy breathing a little bit. Like, okay, not every first and 10 is I'm going to have to go make a throw, or, oh man, okay, on this drive, I don't feel like I'm going to be in 3rd and 8 again, the way he was on his first 2 drives where he took sacks to end both of those drives on like 3rd and 8 type of stuff. So once the run game really got going for them, that was when it started to feel like the second half is what you want the Minnesota offense to be. It's probably not going to be as explosive as last year down to down or overall, but it looked put together, and that's what you want.
I don't think it needs to be. Like, again, let's not get ahead of ourselves. You got to be able to do this consistently, and you're going to play teams in this league where imploding the way you did for the first 40 minutes of regulation is going to bury you. It just that didn't happen tonight, and we can talk about the Bears half of this in a minute. I do think it's only right to focus on the Vikings first. Like you said, it would be easy to kind of jab at the Bears right now, but what an impressive performance. And the clincher, the touchdown drive that put Minnesota up 27-17, and you know, there was still plenty of stupidity to come, but kind of made it feel like Minnesota had control. It was so beautiful, man. 9 plays, 6 of them are runs. Jordan Mason is just caving them in. Again, the right side of the Minnesota offensive line was so much fun to watch in the second half of this game. Like, this is why you go pay a guy like Will Fries. And Ryan Kelly, he was injured for a little bit, but he comes back. So much success there. And then the throws are nothing crazy. Like, you leak Aaron Jones out into the flat. You find TJ Hawkinson on like a shallow out. You design a beautiful screen for Justin Jefferson because you have a fantastic play designer and play caller as your head coach. And then you already mentioned the option keeper, but when the entire defense is crashing down to compensate for how well you've been running the ball, you have a very athletic quarterback who can have an explosive run for a touchdown. And it was so beautiful. It's definitely not high flying. It might not be the most exciting offense we see in the league, but the balance of it all and the just the way it was all structured there at the end, I was like, this is very fun. This could be a very enjoyable watch if it keeps going.
And by the second half, they were getting into the throws that JJ McCarthy is good at. Like he missed some throws over the middle in the first half, but again, he was, I think, just discombobulated for 100 different reasons and didn't play well. But in the second half, he throws one of those touchdowns. I think it was to Justin Jefferson over the middle, where they've got like the double in breaking concept, and Jefferson is the second guy running. Byard, I think, in his younger years is probably able to close on that, but was not able to drive on that and make the play. And so obviously the Vikings end up scoring there. You've got the go ball, like JJ McCarthy down the right side does throw a pretty nice go ball, and that was true even in college. And then all the flat routes that you're mentioning, a bunch of speed outs. Like if you watch the Michigan offense, it was when McCarthy was there, they tried to run like 100 different ways to how do we get the flat defender like just in a tizzy where he cannot catch our guy running free. And Kevin O'Connell has always done a good job of that, and he did a good job of that here. So I think once JJ McCarthy just like got his feet under him, again, he didn't do anything special, but he doesn't need to. He just needs to make 3 plays on an otherwise really good team.
That's such a great way to frame it. Yeah, I mean, he probably made 3 plays in the second half that were like a high degree of difficulty, and the rest of it is, I hate to use the phrase like letting your roster carry you, but it is a very good roster, and that's why we spent so much time talking about this team.
When you're the youngest quarterback in the league, there's no like shame in that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when it comes time to pay him 3 years from now, whatever, like that's going to be a different discussion. But for your first start ever against what we expect to be a pretty good defense, it's okay if the other guys are more important and did a lot of the carry.
The flip side of this, and I can't prove this, it's purely anecdotal, but the Vikings defense looked so toothless in the early going of this game relative to what we think about them. And you didn't see half as much of the funky blitzes and the confusing stuff that Brian Flores likes to throw at people. They just looked lifeless. And I wonder how much of that was, and I get it, you're professional. The goal is to bring the same intensity no matter what. But I wonder how much of that was the effect of watching your quarterback completely flounder and say, we are in deep shit. Like, we are not moving, we're going 3 and out. I think they went 3 and out 5 of their 6 first possessions in this game, like just not moving the ball whatsoever. And then the minute Minnesota's offense showed signs of life, they just roared back into shape. It was like turning over a car engine that you've been struggling to turn on. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, there's Andrew Van Ginkel almost taking a bubble screen back to the house. There's the Vikings getting pressure. There's Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave looking like the guys I remember from their old teams. Like, it was very cool how they just kind of clicked back into being a ferocious unit once they had confidence in the other side of the team.
Yeah, it really started to snowball on each other for like both sides of the ball. I think for me, like why it started off so weird, it did seem like at the very start of the game, like on that first drive, they just weren't throwing as much of their usual stuff. And I think part of that is the Bears on the first drive were they were moving the ball pretty effectively and like getting into the downs and distances they wanted. Like Caleb had a couple of nice scrambles. He was hitting his check downs, like they were moving the ball consistently. And they were running a lot of 12 personnel. And what you want to do against these weird, the Spagnuolo defenses, the Flores defenses, you want to get into heavier personnel and get them into a little bit more of their vanilla stuff because typically they're going to be a little bit more scared of the run and they're not going to want to do as much of their fun stuff. And so the Bears they were able to do that for like their first few drives. You know, they were like 40%, 12 personnel in the first half. And then, like you said, once the Minnesota offense started to turn it on and the Bears offense had to be a little bit more of a passing game, that's when I think Flores was like, oh, well, I can go do all my fun stuff now. And that's when you started to see them turn up the pressure, a lot more 5-man stuff, a little bit more aggressive in the back end. And that's when you started to see Caleb, I think, tense up a little bit. And he was, I think, not as ready for the Brian Flores stuff as you would have liked.
Okay, so let's talk about it. And I've got more I want to say about the Vikings. We don't have to put them completely to the side, but let's talk about this Chicago Bears Ben Johnson debut, which even from the jump, it didn't click all cylinders at any point during this game. It's just that they were going against a completely hapless opponent for the first 25, 30 minutes of this game. What did you make of it? And obviously they collapsed in the second half. We know that. We know by the end of this thing, Caleb Williams was sailing balls high all over the field to every level of this thing. But even in the beginning, they drove for a touchdown at the start of this. I don't know. It still felt a little bit uneven to me. What was your impression?
So this is going to be conflicting. I felt pretty good about Ben Johnson actually, and like the overall offensive structure. One thing I want to note before we can talk about like how good it was, I think it's fascinating that when you think about what the Lions were as a passing offense, everything was on time and over the middle of the field. And everything for Caleb Williams is not on time and usually outside of the numbers. Like it's just a very, very different offense that I think Ben Johnson has been tasked with putting together. But I thought he did a decent job. Like he was giving Caleb, especially on those first couple of drives, a lot of answers late in the down, like a lot of good checkdowns that he was able to get to. I thought that was really effective for them. And then Caleb did have a lot of throws over the middle and over the intermediate area and even down the field towards the end that were open. Like there was the fourth down earlier in the game.
Open receivers was not the issue here.
It was like last year, maybe we can say some of that. This year it was, or at least in this game, was not the issue. Like Caleb was just missing throws, like that fourth down that he missed earlier in the game. The Cole Kmet 1st and 20 that he's got him like the windows there on I think it was like a little bit of a seam bender. He just misses him. And then a lot of the plays in the second half where he's just not connecting. He was throwing high pretty consistently, which that to me is usually the marker of like the quarterback is when a quarterback is consistently missing in one direction, whether it's too high or too low. Like we talked about this last year with CJ Stroud a little bit, right? Like when he started to feel it, everything was at guys' feet. And it's just like once guys start missing a particular way, that's a little bit of like they feel tense. And that's kind of how it felt with Caleb. And so to me, I actually felt okay about the structure of the offense. And I thought the pass protection looked pretty decent until Brian Flores could do some of his stuff. And then it got a little bit haywire. But like structure wise, Chicago fans should feel fine about what they saw, I think.
I'll talk out of both sides of my mouth a little bit. And I recognize that, right? And we said this on Sunday night too, like sitting here at 11 p.m. Central Time right after this game ended. I haven't seen all 22 or any like informed angles of what Caleb Williams could see. So I guess at the end of the day, I'd rather my second-year quarterback be safe, right? Like take the smart throws that are there. And you're right. Like there were a lot of good checkdowns built into this thing. But at a certain point in the game, I was like, is there really this little there? Like, is there really so little there that you are checking down and throwing at the line of scrimmage and dumping it off as often as you are? And like, and maybe that's the case because the Vikings are really good. Brian Flores is really good. But after a certain point, and Troy Aikman was hinting at this on the broadcast all night long, where he's like, Caleb's going to look at this and feel like he maybe should have cut a few more throws loose, but he's not making any terrible decisions. So that's a tough thing to balance where I'm like, be safe, be smart, especially I'll even make the point that early in this game, just don't do anything stupid and the opponent is not playing well enough to beat you. Obviously that changed, but it's certainly a defensible strategy for the early part of this game. But yeah, like I said, as we inch toward halftime, I was like, is there really so little there that we're just not seeing you cut it loose at all?
That's been the most frustrating part of what Caleb Williams has done in the pros to me. It's not the sack taking, it's not like any of the other stuff. Like the sack taking, I think to me is just like, and he didn't really do that in this game, to be clear. He was actually really good at escaping and knowing when to do that in this game. So credit where it's due. He's always been a good athlete, but he looked like particularly
He
like
looked fantastic as a
explosive
scrambler tonight. Yeah.
He looked just the way that he moves is insane. But I would like for him to not have to get to that point in the play as often as he does. And to your point, like I think a lot of young quarterbacks, at least like the really good ones, will test the waters and be like, oh, what can I get away with? Like we saw this from Drake May last year. We saw this certainly from like Josh Allen early on. We just see this from a lot of the Cam Ward has already done this, where it's like, what throws can I make and get away with? Caleb Williams is kind of like the opposite, which has been frustrating, where he's like, I don't know if I can get away with that. I'm just not going to throw it. And I'm going to hold on to it. And then I'm going to go make a play outside of the pocket. I get that. But like to your point, at a certain point, you've got to start letting some of these rip and just see if you can make them.
Which, to continue my college football analogy from earlier, that's great when you're 18, 19, playing like your first major football. And yeah, like don't make the plays that'll sink us, right? And Caleb didn't throw a pick tonight. And yeah, I agree with you. Like for the most part, the intentional grounding situation was one thing that comes to mind. But for the most part, holding on to the ball didn't bite him in the ass. Like he was great at getting away from pressure. He had so many nifty scrambles, obviously scored as a runner in this game. So that was all fine. But at a certain point, I'm like, hey, you're not a freshman in college, man. You're second year pro, number one pick overall. Like, I think about JT O'Sullivan all the time. If you go watch his videos, it's like, throw the ball, man. Like it's there. It's NFL open. Throw the ball. Like this is the stuff you have to do at this level. And I'll say it one more time. I haven't looked back over this game. Maybe that's not the case, but that's just how I felt watching it live, where I was like, I'm going to guess that there's some stuff here that you're just not willing to pull the trigger on.
Yeah, that's also how I feel. And again, I'll wait until, Wednesday. By the time Wednesday comes around, the film will be out and I will have seen that and stuff. But like that was generally the issue with him last year, and it felt like that was probably the case in this game. And I'll give him a little bit of grace because I do think the Ben Johnson offense, it's a lot. And it really asks a lot of you in terms of being aggressive as like an intermediate passer. And I do think that the intermediate area of the field is the hardest one to throw. Like at 8 to 20 yards that's where the really, really good quarterbacks separate themselves. And so in an offense that asks a lot of you in your first game against Brian Flores, I get why that can be really, really difficult. If he keeps having games like this by like week 10, week 11, whenever the next time they see the Vikings is, I'm going to be a lot more concerned. For 1 week, I'm not going to say like give it a pass, but it's like I'm not in panic mode yet with it.
I'm not in panic mode, I think, and maybe some of this is just empathy for our dear friend Robert, but like,
well, he's in panic mode probably. I haven't talked to him, but
fair.
I'm gonna guess.
the bar was so low for this being like a successful outing. Like you get the pick six from Nahshon Wright, which great story. He spent time on the Vikings, and you didn't have Jalen Johnson or Kyler Gordon in this game. So like your reserve secondary sort of makes what you thought was the backbreaking play. And like, even like it's so much better to dissect all of this stuff after a win. And the bar for getting there was so low. And the second half possessions in this game, brutal stuff. Like 3 plays, no yards, 5 plays, 23 yards, 3 plays, -9 yards, 5 plays, 8 yards. And by then the Vikings are up by 2 scores. And then the one drive before the end game scenario where you had any sort of success was just a clusterfuck where, pardon my French, where you get maybe a phantom holding call on Darnell Wright that backs you up after a nice game from DeAndre Swift. And all of a sudden, Caleb has that weird intentional grounding penalty that I missed, and a very easy scoring opportunity, or what looked like one, all of a sudden turns into a 50-yard kick that you miss. And that's right around the time where I was like, oh, the Bears are messing around a little bit too much for my comfort level.
They also, at the very end of the game, had a very, I will say, on the last drive where they scored before, like right before the 2-minute warning, the play where DJ Moore gets hurt, that is an insane throw by Caleb, by the way, where he just like sees the free rusher coming, like puts it there. There are some cases where it's like, oh, quarterback threw his guy into a hit. That was just like great defense. Like that, every quarterback should make that throw if they're a good quarterback, and Caleb put it on him. And so that I at least wanted to shout out like a glimmer of hope for the way that Caleb played.
Caleb made at least a handful of plays where you're like,
He
yes,
did make
this
some,
is
yeah.
this is why he was talked about the way that he was. Like several of those with his feet were with his feet, to be fair, but early on the first touchdown drive, like the throw he made on the run to Roma Dunze at the sideline, where like the torque and the speed that he put on that ball is, I mean, yeah, you look at that and you're like, this is why he got talked about in these terms. Like I didn't imagine the talent level. It's just harnessing it.
That probably, yeah, again, makes him more frustrating. That you'd rather just not see those moments. You'd rather have him just be bad so you can just live with it. But he's got enough of those moments that it's hard.
I was there was certainly, I mean, it is a terrible way for the Ben Johnson era to begin, but there was enough there that I'm with you where I'm like, I gotta ride this out for a while before I'm making any harsh judgments, because yeah, and it's such a good point that all of his misses seem to be high, you know, like, I mean, if it's not good if he's too amped up or if he's too antsy, but we can work on that. Like there were things to build on here, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think so. The only non-Caleb thing that like super frustrated me about this game though was at the very end. So they have the weird sequence where it looks like Caleb runs in for the touchdown at the pylon. He doesn't actually get it. So they put him on the ones and the clock is at like 2:05 and it's like, ah, man, they're going to not get the stoppage at the 2-minute, which they really, really need if they're going to give the ball to the Vikings back and try to get the ball back themselves. They end up scoring the touchdown with 2 seconds left. And it's like, oh man, okay, they're going to get it. And then the kicker on the kickoff lets the kick be fielded so that they can burn the time. And it's like, you cannot operationally do that. Like, do anything else other than that.
Kick the damn ball out of bounds, man. And then in
Yes.
the Discord, we talked about it. It's like Santos doesn't have the leg to boot it out of the back of the end zone. Kick it out of bounds.
Yes, take the
Put him
penalty.
on the-
Who cares?
Put them on the 40-yard line. And like, I mean, if they score a touchdown, it's over anyway. And if like a field goal doesn't change the calculus, there's no reason not to put them on the 40-yard line if that's what you have to do. That irked me. But one last thing before we get out of here, I really loved a lot of the marginal things KOC did in this game. Like we already talked about the option keeper on the touchdown, that sequence right there. And they cut to him on the broadcast where he's telling his kick returner, like, come to me, take it out. And then the other one was, and it looms so large in a game like this, when they got the completion, I think it was to Jalen Naylor right before half, and they try a 59-yard field goal. And at that point in the game, I was like, all right, cool. I guess this is fun. Like who cares? Your quarterback can't move the ball. And lo and behold, they win this game by 3 points. Like just lot of fun winning on the margin stuff for Kevin O'Connell in this game.
KOC is a sharp cookie, man. It's the reason he's won Coach of the Year. And by the time he's done, he'll probably have done it again.
Very fun game. If you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, very fun half for JJ McCarthy. Bears fans, we'll go lick your wounds. We'll check in with Robert when he's had a chance to digest all of this. But a very fun way to wrap up week one. Plenty more content coming y'all's way. But thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to y'all next time.